So how will you sustain your program once the funding period ends? This week, we will be talking about the sustainability plan. So how will you continue your project if you do not receive funding? Unfortunately, a common answer grant applicants provide is that they will continue to seek additional sources of funding. This doesn't answer the intent behind the question, which is to explain to a funder that your program can be sustainable. A grant reviewer will assume that applicants will continue to seek sources of additional funding, but what they really want to know is, what are you doing to create a sustainable plan beyond grant funding? So today we're going to talk about just that. The sustainability plan is basically a document that describes how your project will be sustained long term. This part of the grant application has become more important because donors and funders would like to fund projects that have the potential to survive and thrive in the long term. So your sustainability plan will have to spell out how you intend to do that. It makes sure that resources spent on a project are not lost, and it gives you and the grantor reassurance that the grant is well spent and will have a long-lasting impact even after their support runs out. We want to talk about the water versus seed analogy. So the funder believes that funding is the seed, and the organization usually sees funding as the water. The sustainability plan normally has 3 parts. The 3 parts that you should address in your plan are the community sustainability, the financial sustainability, and the organizational sustainability of your project. And we're going to go into each of these. Community sustainability addresses the issue of how well the project is rooted in the community. It also describes how the community will continue with the project once there are no more financial support from the grantor. This part has been recognized as very important within the last few decades, as it has become more and more clear that without the support of the community, many projects have no chance of survival. If the community does not feel ownership of the project, even with a well thought out financing strategy, the project will probably fail. A good way to ensure community sustainability is to include beneficiaries from the get-go in the planning and implementation of your project. Participatory methods can be very helpful in this. Consult with all stakeholders whenever possible to make sure that the community feels ownership for the project and that their preferences are implemented in your project. We talked about partnerships a few weeks ago. This is a really great place to show your partnerships on the project. Financial sustainability describes the ability of your project to survive financially. You need to make sure that you have future funding sources that can sustain your project. And you have 2 basic options to do this. You can rely on external or internal sources. External sources of funding mean that money comes from outside the organization and is not raised by project activities. This could be more grants, government funding, donations, etc. When this is your plan, make sure to be as precise as possible, because if you only tell the grantor that you will apply for more grants after the project finishes, you do not actually give them a lot of information. Internal sources of financing means that you have a plan to raise money within the organization or through revenue-creating activities. This could be business ventures, membership fees, program fees, or other income-generating activities. It is important that you nevertheless have a good strategy in place from the first stages. So you don't want to wait to implement this strategy till the end of the project. Of course, your section about financial sustainability will look different depending on the type of project you want to implement. If you apply for a one-off project, it is likely that you will not have a follow-up cost. So you'll need to put in less thought about that, versus if you have a project that will have recurring costs that will need to be covered in the long run. Organizational sustainability describes the ability of your organization to survive as a whole. Grantors want to establish long-lasting partnerships with an organization, So they want to know if you're going to be around in 10 years. This part of the sustainability plan should not be neglected, as it is important to show your grantor that you are a great partner and that they can work with in the future. Organizational sustainability can also be shown through your background work, the partnerships that you do have, and upcoming plans. Normally, the sustainability plan is one of the last sections in the grant proposal process. Many grant writers make the mistake of only thinking of it in the late stages of the proposal writing process, but if you've paid close attention to earlier, when we described the different types of sustainability, you will already have noticed that the sustainability plan does not only influence this section, but the entire proposal. If you want to have a strong community sustainability, you will need to design your approach in a way that fosters participation. If you want to ensure financial sustainability through the establishment of a program fee, your activities will need to reflect that. Therefore, the sustainability plan is something that should be on your mind throughout the entire proposal writing process, and something that you should have determined right away in the beginning. Make sure that your entire team is on board when you discuss your vision of the sustainability plan. It will influence many areas of your organization and your project, and everybody needs to know what the long-term strategy is to be able to implement it in a strategic way. Try to approach every aspect of your project planning with the question of how this is going to run in the long term, and write these ideas down to develop your sustainability plan. So now you know what a sustainability plan is, why you might need one, and how you can develop one. But what makes for a successful sustainability plan? What should you look out for to write a good one? There is actually quite a bit of research out there, and according to studies, these are the most important factors that can influence a project's sustainability. Having a coherent mission for your organization, so you want to be able to articulate that. Having a good monitoring and evaluation system, providing the correct staff training, having multiple and diverse sources of funding, being able to prove your organizational sustainability, integrating into existing systems, and having political support, and finally, having overall community support. Knowing this, you should try to keep these factors in mind and write them down as detailed as possible in your sustainability plan. Many organizations still neglect this part of their proposal. You have a great chance to shine here and make your proposal a special one that will ultimately win the grant. Many organizations think of the sustainability plan more as an afterthought than an integral part of the proposal process, and that shows. When the sustainability plan is very superficial and does not go into detail, it will not impress the grant maker. Make sure your sustainability plan is thorough and very concise. Be as specific as you can when talking about the different sections you want to address. When talking about financial sustainability, don't just say you plan to apply for other grants, but tell the grant maker exactly what other grants you want to apply for and why. When you talk about community sustainability, don't just say that you're working with other organizations. Talk about those other organizations and how you will work with them and what your plans for the long term are. Give grantors as much information as possible so that they can see that you really put effort into developing your sustainability plan. Many organizations make the mistake of addressing only one of these areas in their plan instead of all of them, particularly the areas of organizational and community sustainability. Those get neglected in many proposals. Do not make this mistake, though, as it leaves your sustainability plan incomplete. Project sustainability can only be achieved when all areas are covered. If you have the perfect financial plan but the community does not support your project, it will not function in the long run. If you have complete community support, but your organization is unstable and ceases to exist at some point, then your project is going to fail. Make sure you always incorporate all aspects of project sustainability when writing your plan to make sure that it has a chance of success. The sustainability section of the proposal is usually the last section. Nevertheless, project sustainability issues, if really embedded in the project, will influence the entire proposal in all sections. You need to make sure that everything you talk about in your sustainability plan is well reflected throughout your proposal, and you will use your credibility otherwise. Most of these mistakes are the result of something prevalent, thinking about the sustainability plan too late. As it is typically one of the last sections, many organizations also do it very late, and sometimes too late. If you do not have enough time to think about all the issues that we have pointed out earlier, you will have resulting problems. While you don't have to write down your sustainability plan in the first step, it is always important to at least talk about it and discuss it with your team very early. This way, you can make sure that every aspect is included and that everyone is on board with the ideas that you develop. A good sustainability plan influences all parts of the proposal, as we've already discussed. And to be able to do this, it'll need to be known while writing these parts. Make it a habit to talk about your project sustainability issues with your proposal as early in the project planning process as possible. And make sure to include your team. So here's kind of a sustainability plan template. You might want to provide a brief history or background statement. Project what you're going to do moving forward, what program and activities you will continue, and provide justification for their continuation. Your research section will come in play here. Then you'll want to talk about the program structure, including partnership, staffing, oversight needed to support the continuation of the project, and then talk about your funding strategies and what you will use to sustain the activity. Identify potential funding sources of support. This is just a basic sustainability plan template that you can use when crafting yours. Here is an example of a sustainability plan narrative. It's important for you all to know that really this section is 1 to 2 paragraphs. It's not very long, so you do not have pages and pages of narrative that you can provide. It's typically very short. So here in the pink, this organization has outlined their community sustainability plan. So they are approaching several new grant makers for support, and you can read there that they receive grants from others. So they have community support. In blue, they've highlighted their organizational sustainability plan. So they were able to hire a fundraising consultant, and then they're going to develop and implement a fundraising plan that'll expand annual giving, which then in green highlights their financial plan. So they currently have 5 grant proposals pending. This is just a really good example of how to condense all the information that you need to have a cohesive sustainability plan. Okay, so this week, again, you have your second half of the grant proposal as your writing assignment. Please plan to start this ASAP, as it's another 5 pages and it's going to take you some time. A couple required readings there, as well as your weekly discussion forum. Reach out if you have any questions, need help on anything. Remember that these paper proposals are a big part of your grade and will be helping you when we get to the final paper due at the end of the semester. Have a great week.